We just got some insane news about the next big Five Nights at Freddy's game, FNAF: Secret of the Mimic by Steel Studios, along with a PAX West exclusive demo, new lore, and more. Even with what little we've seen of the game so far, we can already start fading into the FNAF timeline and understanding why it's important to the lore, how it will explain one of the biggest questions we've had for years, and more. Today, I'll be analyzing everything we know about Secret of the Mimic and predicting the lore of this huge upcoming FNAF game, as well as explaining the timeline of events of this game and how it ties into the story of William Afton and Henry Emily, the Mimic itself, and more. So wind up that music box, Theorists, and let's get right into it. Before we talk about the lore of Secret of the Mimic, let's go over what we know about the game so far. The game was first announced exactly 1 month ago on the 6th of August, as the special announcement Steel Studios had been teasing. We got a short sneak peek at the game with a zoom in on a weird looking music box with a brand new animatronic we'd never seen before popping out of the box and laughing maniacally. We also catch a glimpse of the date 1979 in said teaser. The blurb for this game is, to see the future, sometimes you need to see the past, a brand new nightmare in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. I'll go more in detail on that last bit later, but for now it seems pretty obvious by this text and the title that this big game is going to be the FNAF prequel we've been wanting for years, and technically the first actual prequel game since FNAF 4. And that was about all the information we had about this game. Until now. Around a week ago, PAX West kicked off with Steel Studios announcing their presence there for a super special 10th anniversary FNAF booth. A booth that included an exclusive demo for guests to play. And although that Secret of the Mimic demo was exclusive and the gameplay footage was not shown outside the convention, both Dawko and FNAF, who went to PAX, have posted their respective reactions and thoughts on the gameplay, and other YouTubers have posted their thoughts on it as well. And just from that, we've gotten some pretty interesting information about this game, so let's get right into it. From what is seen in the demo, the game appears to take place in either a toy factory or some kind of animatronic warehouse. It's more likely it's a warehouse since it's described as having tons of empty animatronic suits inside. The demo contains 2 levels and is similar to Help Wanted 1 and 2, with said levels being Manager's Office and the Chase. Manager's Office has you exploring the area of the warehouse and meeting this game's version of the Mimic and likely the main antagonist, Jackie, the character you saw in the thumbnail. More on that character in a bit. The Chase, however, as the name suggests, is a chase sequence where you're stalked by Jackie until it tries to kill you at the end of the demo. There's no footage of this to show, but we do know what the Jackie animatronic looks like thanks to the models of it shown in the PAX West booth. Essentially, we get a better look at the thing from the original teaser trailer and some additional details that make it look more clown-like. Now, I know some of you might be thinking there's no way this thing is the same Mimic from Ruin. Well, I think there's actually pretty good evidence to say it is. Apart from that animatronic literally appearing in all the promotional material for the game, as we know from the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues, the Mimic is known for wearing various costumes and can, strangely enough, mold its metal around a certain suit it wears. One of the suits described in the epilogues is a Jester Springlock suit that could fit the bill for what this new animatronic actually is. So if Jackie is actually just a Mimic endoskeleton inside that Jester costume, that lines up perfectly with what we've seen of the game thus far. But remember how I brought up that there's actually a lot of mascot costumes in the setting of the demo? Well, some of these costumes seem to match up with the ones from Ruin, like the elephant, and others with the suits from the Tales epilogues, like the dog. Overall, this game's location appears to be very similar to that of Ruin's final chapters or the underground parts of the Pizzaplex. It's been an ongoing theory for a while that a lot of the FNAF locations would have been built one on top of the other, and if this animatronic warehouse gets destroyed at the end of the game and we hear of a Freddy's or Fredbear's location being built right next to or even on top of it, that makes this theory very likely. But hold on a second, I'm getting ahead of myself. When does this game even take place, and why am I talking about Freddy's and Fredbear's? Well, remember the date I mentioned earlier, 1979? Well, this date is actually extremely important, and not just because it's probably the year the game takes place in. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, when Charlotte Emily's looking for information about Fredbear's family diner, she looks for data between the years 1979 and 1983. We know 1983 is almost definitely the year Fredbear's closed because of the bite, which leads me to conclude it opened in 1979, the same year this Mimic game takes place. Before we continue on with this, I think it's about time I explain what I think this weird animatronic warehouse is for, and where I think it's sending all these mascots, so let's do just that. Back when Help Wanted VR's Curse of Dreadbear DLC came out, we were introduced to a brand new event occurring in the Freddy's universe, Fall Fest, with the Dreadbear DLC one happening in 1983. We sort of collectively ignored it until Help Wanted 2 released late last year, where we got yet another reference to Fall Fest, this time with a poster for Fall Fest 1970, and of many of the levels being themed around Fall Fest, with almost every single one of them ending or involving a fire, hinting at the fact that the Fall Fest might have burnt to the ground. Now, this is over 10 years before the earliest confirmed date at the time, FNAF 4, which takes place in 1983, which is the year that the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened. So naturally, many theorists concluded Fall Fest was the origin of Fazbear Entertainment. So if this weird traveling circus-esque Fall Fest thing was created by William Afton and Henry Emily before the creation of the animatronics we know today, the pieces start falling into place. But what kickstarted the animatronic revolution and the later success of Freddy Fazbear's in its many locations? Well, I think it all comes down to one man. A man named Edwin Murray. We were first introduced to Edwin, yet again, in the Tales books, namely in the story The Storyteller, but that particular novella doesn't matter much for today's video, so instead I'll focus on the one that explains Edwin's origins, The Mimic. In it, we meet Edwin, a troubled engineer in the late 70s who lost his wife when she gave birth to their son David. Edwin starts working for Fazbear Entertainment, making animatronics and costumes for the company. Eventually, he realizes David needs someone to play with, so he creates a special imitation software called Mimico-1 and builds him a robot that imitates everything he does using said code, that they name Mimic. Mimic becomes more and more advanced as time goes by, even developing a secret language with David, but one day, David runs out onto the road, gets run over, and dies. Stricken with grief, Edwin keeps working on the animatronics and shuts himself off from the world, until he notices the Mimic still doing the things David did in life, like pretending to eat ice cream or playing catch. In a fit of rage, Edwin pummels the Mimic until it's nothing but a pile of barely functional scrap, pouring his grief, pain, and probably agony into it. For those of you who don't know, agony is basically a physical manifestation of pain and suffering in the FNAF universe that can cause possession. The story cuts to a few months later, where a team sent by Fazbear Entertainment goes to the factory where Edwin worked and tries to find any useful tech to bring back since he's been missing for a while. As they explore, they find out that they're not the first team sent to the factory, as seen by the mutilated corpses of fellow Fazbear employees they find inside. Eventually, they find out that the previous team had rebuilt a beat-up endoskeleton they found in one of the factory's rooms and given it legs, since it originally had none. Then, the Mimic starts hunting the second team down and brutally murders every single one of them, ending the story. This story gives us a pretty good idea of why the Mimic is so angry and violent, and actually fits in very well with Secret of the Mimic. If the story takes place in 1979, then the game would happen only a few short months later. Now, I know there's some of you out there that aren't convinced about the book's canonicy to the games, and that's absolutely valid. I'll be making a video discussing this very soon, so please subscribe with notifications on if you want to see that, and remember to check on my community page to know what I'm up to. But shameless plug aside, the voice lines we've seen so far from Jackie actually match up very well with the Mimic's story. As I mentioned earlier, David and the Mimic had a secret language in the story The Mimic, and a gesture of eating ice cream was something that was brought up a lot in that original story. One of Jackie's voice lines from the PAX booth, although a bit indistinct, has the animatronic saying something that sounds like, "I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream." Have a listen. So if the Mimic still remembers things like ice cream or opening presents and having fun with David, as its other voice lines suggest, then Secret of the Mimic should take place right after Edwin Murray disappears. Maybe Fazbear Entertainment finally manages to get its hands on the Mimic and Mimic-1 programming and uses it for Fall Fest characters like Jackie. After all, these Mimic endos are super easy to teach, you just have to mime out what you want them to do on stage and they'll do just that. Kind of like the Glamrock endos from Security Breach, which likely also have the Mimico-1 code. Later on in Tales from the Pizzaplex, it's explained that Fazbear recalled a large amount of Mimico-2 endos because they started mimicking humans in unexpected ways. I don't know, but maybe one of them witnessed William kill a kid at Fall Fest and started imitating him? But anyway, if one of the Mimic endos Fazbear has in their distribution center is full of agony and extremely volatile, and all the others also have some sort of problem that makes them act in unexpected ways, that's a huge risk for everyone involved. And I think that's what this game is going to be about. It will reveal the true origins and path of the original Mimic, being created by Edwin, possibly getting infected with his agony, and ending up at Fazbear Entertainment's mascot distribution center for Fall Fest, and eventually wreaking havoc on the festival, ending a Fazbear tradition that lasted from the 70s to 1983. So, before we move on to what I think happens to Jackie and the Mimic after the fire, let's make ourselves a little timeline of events I think will happen before, during, and right after Secret of the Mimic. In early 1979, Edwin Murray builds the Mimic, beats it up, and a team from Fazbear sent by William and Henry come to collect the beat-up endo and the Mimico-1 programming Edwin created, bringing it to the animatronic warehouse we saw in the demo. They soon start putting this Mimico-1 code into the other primitive animatronic endos created by engineer Henry Emily, teaching them to dance, sing, and entertain kids while wearing suits, possibly Springlock ones, at their traveling circus-themed festival, Fall Fest. However, one of these Mimic endos in particular, who gets assigned to the Jackie animatronic, a circus-themed Jester Springlock suit, is extremely volatile due to the pain and suffering it receives from Edwin, and starts chasing down employees as we see in the Secret of the Mimic demo, as well as destroying Fazbear property. Eventually, around 1983, a bunch of these Mimic endos get sent to the last Fall Fest and wreak havoc on the place, with everything eventually ending in a huge fire that destroys everything. William Afton and Henry Emily, the co-founders of Fazbear, see this and give up on the Fall Fest brand, taking the fan-favorite Freddy Fazbear characters created as costumes there, as well as some other noteworthy additions such as a cast of circus-themed characters, a balloon boy, and more, to the next level. A massive nationwide chain of animatronic pizzerias, paving the way to fame, riches, and a fondly remembered company with absolutely no blood on its hands. The idea was perfect. However, there was only one thing that could possibly go wrong. 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 So those are my predictions for the plot of Secret of the Mimic. I'm really excited for this game and the new and old lore it might introduce. If any game confirms the book's canoncy to the games, I think it will be this one, since the Mimic's origin story is heavily linked to those books. But we're not done yet. We still have to talk about what became of the Mimic and Jackie after Fall Fest, so let's rewind a bit and do just that. Before departing on their flawless plan to wealth and glory, Henry and William picked up what little remained of their beloved Fall Fest characters up from the charred floor. For Henry, a loud, cheerful Barker bear with an obnoxious accent, Carney. For William, a two-sided sun and moon animatronic intended for performances and theatrics, the Eclipse. But that's not where it ended. Hidden beneath the rubble were two interesting items. A charred, beat-up Mimic endoskeleton and an abandoned Jackie costume with its mask strangely intact. Interesting. William took the mask and Jackie, leaving Henry with the charred endo. Henry took it with him and kept it away for safekeeping. Maybe, just maybe, it would be useful someday. I think that while the Mimic was kept in some Fazbear storage room, with it eventually being sent to the Pizzaplex for a shipment and beginning the story of ruin and the Tales epilogues, Jackie's fate is much more interesting. I think that William took Jackie and turned her into a brand new idea, the basis for the Funtime animatronics. In fact, I'll go a step further and say that I think the Ennard mask has its origins in Jackie. After all, both of them have segmented faceplates and that big red nose, as well as a button on their chest. Maybe this isn't the exact mask from the original Jackie, but rather a restored version of it, who knows. The original Jackie could also be the Springlock suit we see on Sister Location's 4th night, explaining why its faceplates match up with Ennard, and why it looks so primitive compared to Spring Bonnie and Fredbear, because it's older. And with that, I conclude my analysis of Secret of the Mimic and what we know so far. We've still got plenty of time until the game comes out and tons more news to come, so let's see if I end up being right or not. I hope you enjoyed this video and please consider liking, subscribing, but most importantly commenting your opinion if you did or if you didn't. Remember to be respectful in the comments since it's all just a theory, and remember folks, keep on theorizing and never stop overthinking. This has been Woodward Circle, the Midnight Theorist.